This is Special Chronicles, giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.
I shudder thinking how the world can be so cruel. I lend my voice to those who can't. It's time we try, it's time we care, it's time we stand. It starts with a voice.
Welcome to the Special Chronicles podcast, EnergyForce series. My name is Daniel Smrokowski. I'm the founder and host of Special Chronicles and EnergyForce ambassador with ComEd. Our website, specialchronicles.com, to follow Special Chronicles on social, subscribe to our newsletter, check out all the different series that we have, and specialchronicles.com. This week on the Special Chronicles podcast, EnergyForce series, season 8, part 3, our returning guest is Kelvin Limbrick, and our topic is Oath Day. Please put your virtual hands together as we welcome Kelvin back on the Special Chronicles podcast.
Hey,
Welcome back.
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Yes, and our listeners can go back if you go to specialchronicles.com/EnergyForce. You can go back to the last season, last year, and do a search for the trees episode that we did. And it's good to have you on. But this episode we're talking about Vegetation Management, Brush, and Oath Day. So to begin, can you explain what vegetation management is and why it's so crucial for ComEd?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, awesome. To begin, can you explain what vegetation management is and why it's so crucial for ComEd?
Yeah, vegetation management is in the definition, but basically the control or management of plants, whether they're herbaceous, leafy, or the trees and shrubs that grow around our infrastructure. So it isn't limited to power lines, big for roads and railroads and all that jazz. But in our case, we want to make sure that there's no contact between our trees and the lines distributing our power, whether they're transmission or distribution. It's absolutely crucial in the fact that a tree that touches a power line could catch fire, could cause an interruption in the service, and a path around for the electricity. So you can also have issues as far as that tree becoming a safety hazard, where if somebody were to touch that, there's a chance of electroshock. And also managing the vegetation keeps it open so that we can see the lines and see if there are any issues, or if in the case of storm, a line comes down because a limb hits it or maybe some other factor. We want to be able to find those lines without getting too close to them so that our crews can repair them in a timely manner.
Awesome. And how does ComEd access and prioritize which areas need vegetation management? How does ComEd access and prioritize which areas need vegetation management?
Oh, yeah. So there's a lot of different ways. Our team is made up of roughly 20 people here in vegetation management, and we all do a little bit different as far as prioritizing. So we have programs that handle the immediate issues, such as anything that might be on the line from a storm or just general contact on a day-to-day basis. We have programs that assess some of our larger consumers, such as hospitals, our airports, things that really can't be down at all for any amount of time. And then beyond that, we also have different programs that look at reliability from, what is the most vulnerable area of the system for residents, and what areas have the most outages for the longest duration. Because there's always a part of that list. No matter how good we get, we'll always have a handful of folks that are a little bit more exposed or a little more vulnerable than the rest. So we try to assess reliability in that way. And then from there, we just have our general cycle. So we'll go around the system on a 5-year cycle for transmission or a 4-year cycle for distribution. And essentially, we just do a fifth of that transmission footprint or a fourth of that distribution system to just kind of keep it rolling so that everybody has reliable power without any issues from vegetation.
Awesome. And safety is important, especially with ComEd and power lines. And so what safety measures does ComEd take when managing vegetation on power lines and other electrical infrastructure? What safety measures?
Yeah, so safety's number one for us. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Safety's number one for us, and our arboriculture is one of the absolute more dangerous fields that you can be in, unfortunately, and that's even before you get into the utility side of things. So there are serious safety concerns in the work that we do on a day-to-day basis. So we're all wearing our hard hats, our safety glasses. We've got high visibility so that you can see us on the roadsides, and then good footwear. But also we've got things like our climbers have to wear harnesses for climbing trees. If they're working in a bucket, they've got to have the proper harnesses to keep them in the bucket in case there's some sort of an issue. And then each job from there, chaps, if you're cutting with the chainsaw, proper gloves so that your hands don't get cut on anything. There's a lot that we consider.
Awesome. And are there any challenges that you face when it comes to managing vegetation in densely populated areas or nature preserves? Like just a few blocks from where I live, there's a Cook County forest preserves. Or are there any challenges when it comes to managing in these densely populated areas?
Yeah. So, I mean, first and foremost, we want to protect and preserve the natural areas that we have around us. So, things like considering how we interact with that area. If it's a sensitive area, we want to make sure that, we're not tearing up the ground. So we may work in winter, or we may, find out what exactly their needs are. If there's anything in particular, considering what species we're interacting with or any areas to avoid. So when working around the nature preserves, we would like to try and make sure that we're being good stewards and protecting and preserving everything that we're working with. So we try to avoid getting into areas that are a little more sensitive. We may work during the winter so that when the ground is frozen, we can bring our equipment in if we have to, or we may hand cut and drag out anything that we need to remove. Other than that, going through proper permits and making sure that everything is okay as far as what species are there and the time of year. But outside of that, we understand that people really like their trees. We love trees too. We're all arborists here in the Vegetation Management Department. And what we try to do is find that fine balance between energy delivery and and keeping our trees and having them be beautiful and in the form that they.
Awesome. Well, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll get into the environmental impact and all about brush, as well as Oath Day is all coming up with our guest Kelvin Limbrick, ComEd Vegetation Management and Senior Program Manager at ComEd when we return after this short break, to let you know that this episode is brought to you by listeners like you. Please join our supporters with a monthly or one-time donation so we can operate our studio and continue our mission, give respect and voice to people with disabilities. Visit specialchronicles.com/give. That's specialchronicles.com/give, and you can access bonus content for starting at $10 a month and up, or any donation when you join now at specialchronicles.com/plus. That's specialchronicles.com/plus to support this podcast. And back to the program as we now switch gears slightly to talk about brush. We've highlighted brush, I think, a little bit on some of our episodes last season, last year, but now when we kind of connect brush with the environmental impact, how does ComEd manage brush and other vegetation in a way that minimizes the environmental impact?
Yeah, so we when we're doing our work planning or working in a particular area, we're very aware of what threatened and endangered species are in that area and what the laws are as far as having to be in that area. So, first and foremost, we're overseen by our environmental services departments who help guide us through the best management practices for brush in that area. But then just, taking extra steps to have a questioning attitude in what we're doing on a day-to-day basis and whether or not it actually has to happen, or can we do something different in order to meet the needs of the environment that we're in at that time. Sometimes, again, that means working during the winter when the ground's frozen, or just whenever that species isn't there as a whole. But it also might mean using the right tools. So, for example, we use goats in central Illinois near Starved Rock State Park and out in Peoria in an effort to reduce our impact on slopes and provide a sort of a safe work environment for our contractors.
Awesome. And I'm glad that you mentioned the I'm using goats, because that was in planning the episodes for this season, for this year on this EnergyForce series. That was a topic that, and I'm glad that you brought it up, because that was a topic that I didn't know that ComEd deals with goats. And then in preparing that's a good teaser for the next episode that we'll be recording with you, and in preparing for that episode, I did a Google search just to kind of learn just a little bit about what ComEd. But our listeners can. You can stay subscribed and keep following this podcast for the next episode of this series on this season of the EnergyForce series on Special Chronicles. Can you discuss any initiatives ComEd is involved in that support sustainable vegetation management?
Well, Daniel, I'm going to tell you that there's quite a bit, and I think every department is sort of brings a little bit something different to the table. So the short list that Vegetation Management and myself are involved in, we have an employee resource group called Eco Team, which is pretty popular with us and the rest of the company. I think the membership is somewhere around 823, but it's kind of like an extracurricular for the employees. So I'm on the board of directors for that, and we do newsletters every week and all the marketing communications. I tend to handle that. But what's really exciting is for Earth Day, we're planning to get out on the Illinois Prairie Path and do some trail cleanup. So we've got a transmission corridor that runs along the Prairie Path, and ComEd employees are going to volunteer for Earth Day to go and pick up garbage, which is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited about that. And then one of the other things is that usually it's more Arbor Day oriented rather than Earth Day oriented, but I think they tend to go very hand in hand. Us vegetation management employees, we try to get out in the community. So you may see us at an Earth Day event with a table talking about trees and vegetation management. There's also different schools. Some of us will attend schools or do a planting for the community. And just a nice way for us to give back, plant things where they'll grow appropriately and won't interfere with our power lines, and just have a good time enjoying the environment.
Awesome. And are there any partnerships or collaborations with environmental organizations that help ComEd to ensure responsibility brush management? I'm sure your employee resource group that does a lot, but are there any partnerships or collaborations that ComEd works with?
Yeah, so Arbor Day Foundation, we work with them quite a bit. We're actually a Tree Line USA certified utility. That's one of those things that every year I've got to make sure that we're following all the rules and investing in planting trees, where appropriate. We also partner with the Morton Arboretum on a lot of different things. So one of the big things that we just did was I've been working on updating this document here. Oh, I don't know if you can see it, but the power of smart planting. It's a great document that just kind of runs you through planting near power lines, what you should or shouldn't do, different species, natives, which ones you should avoid. So that's a good one. And the Morton Arboretum, we work on a lot of different things. If you've ever seen their Gateway to Tree Science, we have a really cool display there that shows planting right tree, right place. So what happens if you plant a tree that's too large underneath the power lines, and then maybe a few suggestions on what you could plant. We also have a prairie program with them that is a little bit more behind the scenes, but we try to restore the area so that it's pollinator friendly. It's a pollinator plot, and we do butterfly surveys there, which is always yields some fantastic photos. And if you ever need a spot to just relax and enjoy a beautiful day, the Morton Arboretum's pollinator plot is absolutely it. And then the last big one is that when we are going through and removing limbs or trees, we try to save a little bit for our local zoo animals. So Brookfield Zoo, Lincoln Park Zoo, Phillips Park Zoo in Aurora, we do about 60 yards worth of deliveries to them each week. Every week we try to deliver an average of 60 yards to all the zoos combined. Talking too fast for my tongue.
Awesome. And how does as we wrap up this segment before we get to the final segment, how does ComEd ensure that wildlife and habitats are not negatively impacted during vegetation clearing efforts?
Yeah, so we do a lot of removals and we do a lot of trimming. And one of the big things that we try to make sure, I kind of mentioned that, considering time of year, what species are present, talking to our environmental services department to make sure that we're, following the law and we're not causing any issues in safe spaces or spaces that we want to be a good steward. One of the other techniques that we use on the transmission end is called integrated vegetation management. And the idea is that by promoting prairie underneath the power line, so by creating habitat, we actually resist the trees that try to grow up because we're nurturing the prairie, and the prairie creates competition against, say, like an oak tree or any other species. A lot of times the species that we're removing too isn't necessarily an oak, it may be, but it could also be things like buckthorn, honeysuckle, autumn olive, which are all tree species that are native to Europe and Asia or other places in the world, and they don't really have the same ecological value in our area as they do there, because our insects, whether they're pollinators or not, and our animals have evolved to work with those species that are here. And some of the ones from other countries might have a small benefit, but it's nowhere near as beneficial as, say, our milkweed or any of our other beautiful flowers and plants that have co-evolved with our insects. So we try to promote those and prevent the others. So not only are we trying to protect what we have, we're trying to grow it too.
Awesome. And we're going to take one final break to mention a couple of our sponsors. One, you guys all probably could tell by the polo that I'm wearing and what this series is all about. But we'll mention a couple of our sponsors, and then we'll come back and talk all about Day that is coming up, and Kelvin will remind us, because I'm sure you all could do a Google search, but Kelvin will remind you when Oath Day is after this break right here. This episode is brought to you by the ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador Program, the country's first energy and solar efficiency education program designed for, taught by people with disabilities. Learn more at specialchronicles.com/ComEd. That's specialchronicles.com/ComEd. And this episode is brought to you by United Airlines Bridge Disability Business Resource Group, connecting people of all abilities, including hiring Special Olympics athletes like myself as employees. Learn more on United's commitment to disability inclusion for employment and travel at specialchronicles.com/United. That's specialchronicles.com/United. And back to the program as we talk about Oath Day. And actually, what I was I'm always thinking of the producing side of things on this. I've got a content producer for this podcast, but I'm also thinking, and we'll probably release the video for this episode on Oath Day, and then the audio podcast will come out a couple months. The audio podcast will probably come out the end of June, but we'll probably so if you guys are all are listening it, or watching, go to specialchronicles.com and click on YouTube to subscribe to this channel. And but with that, can you Kelvin, let us know when is Oath Day? And then with Oath Day coming up, can you share what ComEd is doing to promote sustainability and environmental stewardship in the local communities? I think you highlighted it a little bit, but
yeah. So Earth Day is Tuesday, April 22nd. So I encourage everybody, definitely, like you said, Daniel, Google and see what's going on in your area. There are a lot of different events, but we're going to be doing a cleanup along the Illinois Prairie Path. That's sort of a ComEd internal event, but you're welcome if you happen to be out. I believe it's like 9 a.m. to noon. We'll be in Maywood. We're going to have one in sort of the Carroll Stream area and another one out near Geneva. So a couple different sites. If you're taking a walk on the trail, you might see us, say hi, come chat us up. And help us pick up a little bit of garbage. Otherwise, we'll be around in the community. There's going to be a table at the Streamwood Earth Day. We'll have one of our eco team members there handing out materials and talking about being good stewards and what we're doing. And I think just all around trying to get people out and planting trees.
Awesome. And how does ComEd balance environmental? I'm going to combine a couple of questions just for the sake of time.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's a busy day here in the studio, as you probably could tell. Some people popped into the studio. But how does ComEd balance environmental sustainability with the practical needs of maintaining a reliable energy system? And are there any special Earth Day events or community engagement initiatives that ComEd is involved in this year?
Yeah, so I think the big thing is that when we do our trimming and removals, we try to be very conscious about what we're doing. We have our integrated vegetation management on our transmission system that we talked about. Environmental Services Department, they have the ComEd Prairie program, which is sort of the result of preserving and protecting those areas where we work. But you know what, Daniel? I'm sorry, I got derailed. Can you ask that question again?
Yeah. No worries. How does ComEd balance environmental sustainability with the practical needs of maintaining a reliable energy system?
Right. Thank you. And overall, what we found is that all those things that I was talking about before I lost track, what they end up doing is they help us maintain that reliable power delivery, while also, giving us the opportunity to protect, preserve, and grow the environment that we all live in and need to survive. So how we balance it is really very simple. We preserve and protect, and we grow. And by doing that, we actually give ourselves the opportunity to deliver reliable power a lot easier.
Awesome. And can you just, for the sake of time, just briefly highlight any special Earth Day events? I know you highlighted it at the beginning of this segment, but any special Earth Day events or community engagement initiatives that all listeners can get in, can join in?
Yeah, most of the ones that I talked about, they are going to be internal. So if you see us out, we are more than happy to engage with you. So again, we'll be doing a Prairie Path cleanup in Maywood, Carroll Stream, Geneva, and actually one I forgot was West Chicago. So if you happen to see us, come join us, and we'd love to have you help us out with cleaning up some trash. And then in Streamwood, I know that there's going to be a table set up by the Eco Team and manned there. So we'll have the opportunity for you to come and stop by and chat with us there.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Awesome. And how does ComEd educate its customers about the importance of Earth Day and sustainability efforts related to vegetation management? I'm sure if our listeners see you and your team out on Earth Day, that's one way. But how else is ComEd educating? And I'm sure that this podcast series that we're recording right now is a big way as well. But how else is ComEd educating its customers?
Yeah, you can check out our website, comed.com/trees, and there is a whole load of information on the stuff that you can do with your trees and in your yard and for the environment.
Awesome. I got to get that banner up, but I'll put it up on the screen if you're watching us on YouTube right now, comed.com/trees, and that we'll put that link in the show notes, as well as if you go to specialchronicles.com/ComEd, I've got a list of resources there as well. And then before we get to the final couple questions in terms of long-term sustainability, what is ComEd's vision for creating an environmental friendly and resilient energy system?
Yeah, so I would say that integrated vegetation management sums it up. So the idea is to promote those ecosystems that are native and work well with our power lines to prevent outages and allow accessibility, as well as clean the air and encourage the native species to flourish. So I think that one sums it up pretty nicely. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And before we get to the final question, do you have any? I know the past half hour has flown by, and if our listeners want to get more in depth about trees, I believe that episode was titled "Trees for You and Me." There was a couple of tree jokes that you shared on that episode. You all, if you are all listening in or watching this episode, go to specialchronicles.com/EnergyForce. And you can do a search for that trees episode to hear more from Kelvin, included a couple of tree jokes. So if you missed that episode, go back to last season and listen to that episode. But do you have any final thoughts in your time here on the Special Chronicles podcast?
Well, Daniel, I do have a joke if you want to hear it.
Sure, yeah, great. Before we get to that joke, why don't we get to that final question, and then we'll leave our listeners on that joke. So we've got a bumper. So let's go ahead and play that bumper.
We're not just athletes.
We are the ambassadors of an uprising. Peaceful protesters.
In a rebellion against anyone
who has a fear of difference.
Difference. Our demands are
equality,
dignity,
and the recognition of our
shared humanity. We will not stop or accept anything less.
Today, our world is
more divided than ever. Coming together has never been more urgent.
The revolution
is inclusion.
Find out more at jointherevolution.org.
So we conclude all of these episodes, and with we don't just want our listeners to listen to us for the past half hour, but we want our listeners to take inclusion and bring inclusion into their own communities and lives and towns and and workplaces and schools. And so I'll conclude with you, Kelvin, before we get to that Oath Day joke. And maybe you can put a little Oath Day spin to this question, but what does inclusion mean to you?
Yeah, so inclusion means making sure that everybody has an opportunity to bring their shared experiences to the table, to participate, and to enjoy, in this case, maybe the natural world we live in. One of the things that I think of when you say inclusion from maybe not a human-centric perspective, but from an environmental one, is in an ecosystem in the community that supports us and our ability to live here on Earth, is that everyone in that community, as far as living organisms and even factors like weather. So, you think your least favorite day as far as weather goes, it all plays a role in making this Earth habitable and healthy. And I think that really goes to show that no matter what you bring to the table, it's valuable.
Awesome. And I'll share just a few final plugs for you listeners, and then we'll leave you listeners on a joke that you can share with your friends and family on Oath Day. You can shop our merchandise store, Disabled Voices Matter merch. We have t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, 60% of the profits will go back to Special Chronicles. You can shop now at specialchronicles.com/shop. That's specialchronicles.com/shop. And tap that follow button. We've got new episodes. You can go back. We've got a recap of Torin 2025, the Special Olympics World Winter Games. You can go back. We've got lots of behind-the-scenes stories and conversations on this podcast. And then we've got some exciting episodes on this season 8 of this EnergyForce series. And some of the topics that are coming up are the ComEd GOATs with Kelvin. And then we'll also be talking about the education programs of ComEd, also the Switch on Summer event, electrical vehicles or EVs, advancement in solar, customer communication, and then holiday lights are some of the other topics on this EnergyForce series. So stay subscribed and follow on Special Chronicles, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. And Kelvin, before we play the outro, and we'll leave our listeners on that Oath Day joke.
Yeah. So how do flowers whistle?
I don't know.
With their tulips.
Awesome. Well, that's a perfect way to. Oh, the audience is still laughing. they couldn't get enough of.
I thought it was a sketch, but I'm glad they enjoyed it.
Yes, I'm glad. You guys all can leave your comments on this episode and let us know if you enjoy that. Thank you again, Kelvin, for coming on as we celebrate Oath Day on this episode. Until then, we'll
for having me.
And we'll see you on next week on the GOATs episode.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Talk to you all next week.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Special Chronicles podcast. Our podcast was produced by Daniel Smrokowski on the Special Chronicles Network. Follow Special Chronicles on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Subscribe, rate, and review Special Chronicles on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Our website, specialchronicles.com, where you can stream our archives of over 500 episodes for free. Also, there's a list of our favorites, original series, award-winning columns, and blogs. And sign up for our newsletter to receive exclusive bonus content delivered to your inbox. Again, specialchronicles.com. Special Chronicles is hosted by Podbean Podcast Hosting. Our live streams are powered by StreamYard. Thanks, as always, to our business manager, Adam Smrokowski, who always encourages us to never give up. I'm Daniel Smrokowski, back next week with more stories.
Special Chronicles, giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.